Welcome to Take Two with Freddy. Real talk about second chances, real life, and the power of rewriting your story. I'm Freddy Freundlich, entrepreneur, mentor, and storyteller. And here's the deal, if I didn't walk it, I don't talk it. Each week, we'll spend some time laughing, reflecting, and hopefully walking away a little more inspired than when we started. So, what's on my mind today? Today, I'd like to share something I call the 1 degree solution. And it's a simple idea, almost too simple, and that's usually why we tend to dismiss it. But I think, guys, once you really understand it, it will explain almost everything about growth and change and why so many people feel stuck even when they're doing what they would call all the right things. A quick note here. I know we have an international audience, and some of you think in Celsius and others in Fahrenheit. Today, I'm talking Fahrenheit when I talk temperatures. Water at 210 degrees Fahrenheit is hot. In fact, it's very hot. At 211 degrees, it's still just hot water. But at 212 degrees, something radical happens. It boils. And when water boils, it turns into steam. Steam can move pistons. Steam can power engines. Steam can pull trains and generate electricity. At 1 degree, it can do amazing stuff. It has a world moving power. 1 degree difference at 211 degrees, nada, 212 degrees, the power to literally and figuratively move the world. 1 degree, that's it. Now, when people think about making changes, big changes, they want to change who they are, they want to change their situation in any area of life, most people think they need to go big. They're thinking that they need to sort of get a new life, or at the very least, a new job, a new city, a new relationship. They have to sort of create a new version of themselves. Well, folks, I'm here to tell you that they don't. Nobody needs a personality transplant to get ahead. What most of us need is just to get a little hotter. Not 50 degrees hotter, not 100 degrees hotter. Most of us are just 1 or 2 degrees away, and we miss it. Why? Because we have been conditioned to believe that transformation has to be dramatic, that it has to be a wow, or that it has to be painful, and it has to come with big announcements and big decisions and big visible changes. But boiling doesn't look dramatic until it suddenly is. In other words, there's no visible difference between 210 degrees, 211 degrees, and even 212 degrees until everything changes. Think for a moment about water on a stovetop. You put the water, it's cold, and for a long time, nothing seems to happen. The cold looks like the warm looks like the hot, well, it even looks more hot. You don't really see any progress, but progress is happening and you know it. But when it comes to ourselves and not to the stovetop, we miss the point. And most people quit where they are. They turn off the heat at 209, 208, 211. And then what will happen? Just like on the stovetop, the water starts to cool. And eventually it goes right back to where it was before. And if they want boiling water, they got to start all over again. And with our lives, that's when we begin to tell the story. Oh, I've tried, and nothing works. And it's simply not true. They just didn't stay long enough to reach the boiling point. Guys, I'm reminded of a joke. A guy walks into a gas station and he asks the owner, how much for one drop of gasoline? The owner laughs and says, one drop? That's all you need? He says, yeah, one drop. How much will you charge me? He says, for one drop, it's free. It's on the house. The guy says, great. Fill my tank with as many drops as I'll hold. And that's how life works. We don't fill the tank all at once. We do it one drop at a time, one day at a time, one small action at a time. Guys, I really like this joke because when I reflect back on the successes in my life, in pretty much any area, that's about how it all came about, one drop at a time. Just a recent example for you. For 90 days ago, I decided to change my diet and exercise plan. I decided to no longer eat wheat and include in my minimum of 10,000 steps a day. That part of that had to be that I had to walk outside for at least 30 minutes, rain or shine, 7 days a week. In other words, no excuses. Now, for some of you, this may seem like no big deal, but believe me, for me, it was. Now, part of the key was that I told myself that I was just going to worry about it one day at a time, and that in addition, I was only making this commitment for 30 days. And after 30 days, I gave myself permission to quit if I wanted, and I didn't need any excuses. I would try for 30 days and I'd make my decision. Long story short, 30 days came. I decided to go on one day at a time, and here I am still going. Now, I have no guarantees whether tomorrow I'll do it or this will continue. But first of all, no one can ever take away from me the fact that I have done it for the past 90 days. Secondly, the more I do it, and 90 days is a good place to be, it causes an inertia that you're getting closer and closer to that boiling point. And some will say that even as little as after 21 days, you've already reached the boiling point. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I know it's much easier for me today than it was on day two. In fact, I have to add this. Several days ago, there was a big rainstorm, and I went out. I hadn't done my walking. It was at night, and I came outside. I was dressed properly, but it was pouring. And my first thought was, I'm not doing it. But I looked at my phone where I keep count, and I said, hey, you've been doing this for, let's say, 79 days. And I went out and I completed it. I can tell you almost for sure, if that happened on day two, I probably would have quit. But as I said, one step at a time, one drop at a time, it leads you to amazing places. Let's for a moment, guys, talk about relationships. And we can talk about any kind of relationship, but especially marriage. Marriages hopefully last for the duration, but we all know that many times they don't. And when they end, it's usually thought of as something happened. But the truth is, marriages don't usually end because of one big thing. They end because of degrees, small things that piled up, unsaid words, unkept promises, moments when we pull back instead of leaning in. And then one day, it looks like it ended over something really humongous, but it was in actuality something very small. And that small thing had gotten to the point where it was that 1 degree that tipped it over into the boiling point. Remember, good or bad, steam is neutral. It doesn't come from one grand gesture. It comes from science. It comes from small shifts repeated over time. Sometimes people will come to me and tell me that they're feeling stuck. I don't think that most people are stuck. I think they're hot. They're doing the work, they're showing up, they're sweating. They just haven't reached their boiling point yet. And I think this is where spirituality comes in. I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about alignment. When your inner temperature matches your outer actions, things begin to change. And folks, I really want you to listen to this line. The universe responds to alignment, not effort. I'll repeat it because it is important. The universe responds to alignment, not effort. Remember, you can't force water to boil. You can't yell at it. You can't yell at the pot. You can't shame the water. It's just a matter of following the process, staying consistent. Hard word to hear, be patient and just wait. So many of you may be thinking, sounds good, but like practically, what do I need to do? What is my 1 degree? Well, for everybody, it may be a different thing. It could be something like being 1 degree more honest, or 1 degree more patient, 1 degree more responsible. Here's some biggies: 1 degree more willing to listen instead of talking, instead of speaking, instead of reacting. One less comment, even when you know you're right. One more moment of restraint. How about one small act of integrity or charity? It's the little things. That's how steam gets created, 1 degree at a time. You know, when I've shared this with people, a lot of times they say, well, in order to get to the boiling point, I faced burnout. Okay. And I want to talk a little bit about burnout versus boiling. I actually think burnout happens when you try and jump too quickly, when you try and jump 50 or 100 degrees rather than 1 degree at a time. Because transformation doesn't work that way. On the stovetop, it cannot go to 50 degrees at once. No matter how quickly you can get the water to boil, it has to go through the stages. Life responds to rhythm, consistency, and alignment, not force. And you don't have to worry yourselves about boiling forever. People are, well, what will happen when? What does the day after look like? That's not your concern. Your concern is just getting to 212 degrees Fahrenheit. And when you get there, things will start moving in ways that feel almost miraculous. You won't even understand how you got there. And it won't be because you worked harder. It will just because you stayed in the process long enough. So, as we end this episode, I'll ask you one simple question and take a few moments, think about it. What's the 1 degree you already know you have been avoiding? Thanks again, guys, for joining me on Take Two with Freddy. If this episode made you think, smile, or pause, please share it with someone who might need the gift of now. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Freddy Freundlich, and remember, if I didn't walk it, I don't talk it.